Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, to a brand new video, and today's video is going to be binge eating in recovery from anorexia, so binge eating. So before I get into this video, I want to say two things. The first thing is that this won't be my only video on binge eating and anorexia recovery. I'll be doing so many more videos on this because it's such an important topic, and there is definitely not enough awareness out there, and there's just definitely not enough videos on it. Like, I remember during my first recovery attempt, like, I couldn't literally find anything whatsoever to do with this, and I felt so alone. So I want to make sure that I make as much videos on this as possible. I'm going to try and answer as many of like the frequently asked questions that I get about binge eating disorders in this video, but like, I just want to say that there are just so many more, like, there's just so many more things that come with this that people just don't talk about, and it definitely needs to be talked about a lot more. And the second thing I want to say is that this video is for those who are recovering from a restrictive eating disorder. This video isn't for people who have binge eating disorder. This video is for people who are recovering from things like anorexia or bulimia and are struggling with this kind of binge eating. And I just want to talk about it, discuss this, what is it, if it's normal, am I developing a binge eating disorder, things like that you probably have a lot of questions are. And I just want to also kind of normalize it. So I'm thinking about doing it, like recording maybe a time if I ever do have another recovery feast or whatever and binge eat. I'm actually thinking about recording it for you guys to see it, and for you guys to realize that no amount of food is too much food, and that it's completely normal, and it happens and it's part of the process, and it's a response to restriction. And I really want to go ahead and just normalize this entire situation, because it's normal, it happens, and it probably will happen to you. And I don't want people to fear it so much. I want people to accept that it happens, and for people to just be alright about it. Obviously you're not going to be great about it because you have anorexia, but like, I just want people to be, you know, not like as if like it's this bad thing that shouldn't happen or you shouldn't do it. So let's get straight into this video, and let's talk about binge eating in recovery. And when I say binge eating, I say more binge eating. We call binge eating, and by we I say people like me, Tabitha Farah, follow the intuition or whatever, call binge eating recovery feasts, because that's exactly what they are. It's your body feasting after a famine, and this is a normal process and a thing that happens in response to restriction. You're imagining that your body is basically coming out of a hibernation, or imagine your body as an animal, and that animal thinks that it's not going to have food for a really long time, so it needs to prepare for hibernation. Your body in that animal would start to want to like get everything in that moment, so it will start to grab bits from here and there, and it will try and just start to eat as much food as possible to store it, because it fears that it's going to have this really long period without food, and your body is fearing that as well. Your body and your brain doesn't trust you yet, so it's not going to just want just a little bit of that cake, or only it doesn't want just a slice of that cake. It will want the entire cake, because of the fact that it's like, I don't think I'm going to get this again, so I need to eat this all right now to make sure that I have enough energy to store for doing basic functions. And as well as when you start to restrict so much, then your body starts to feed off its vital organs, because it doesn't have enough food and stuff in muscle to feed off, or like fat to feed off. So it starts to like eat away at your muscles, which is like, it starts to eat away at your heart muscle, which is then can cause things like cardiac arrest and death. So you need to show your body that it can trust you, and that it's not going to have like a huge period of time without food. So eating consistently and constantly showing your body, even if you're not that hungry, just showing your body that food is coming consistently and it's not going to stop at any time, will so help you with not only the urge to have these big recovery feasts, but also your mental hunger, your physical hunger. It will also help you with your, like, you know, the obsession about food and stuff like that, because food won't become this huge special thing. It won't need to be this perfect moment. It won't need to be this special thing that only happens really on really rare occasions. It will just be food. food, because that's all it is at the end of the day. Food is just food, and it's just a normal thing, and you don't need to overthink the process. And once your brain starts to know that it doesn't need to overthink the process or doesn't need to freak out about this process, then it will be able to eat it normally. Another thing I want to say is that, well, loads of people are like, but I just want to get to normal eating, and I just want to be normal again, or like, why can't I just eat normally and stuff like that. And that is literally because of the fact that there is nothing normal about having anorexia. There is nothing normal about having an eating disorder, and there's nothing normal or gonna be normal until you start to recover, and until you start to gradually, well, I say gradually, but literally just dive in. Like, until you start to, actually recover both mentally and physically, you're not going to be normal. You're not going to eat food normally. You're going to want loads more than the person sitting next to you. You're going to want loads more than your family. And that's another thing. You could probably end up feeling the need to compare to your family, but you literally cannot compare, because your body is literally in starvation mode. Whether or not you're healthy or not, your body has still been restricted from food. And what always comforts me when I have these huge, like, binge kind of feast things is that I think of all the days that I've missed out on the food. Like, whether or not you've restricted for days, weeks, months, years, your body's been restricted of something, and at that time it's been starved, so it's gonna want more of that food. And I just think back to those days when I said no to that, buffet, or no to that party to avoid pizza or whatever, or just literally no to that grape even, or no to that mint. It's still restriction, and I've still restricted, and that time adds up, and that amount of calories that I've missed adds up as well. And that means I'm going to have to make up for it so much more. And that isn't going to be say that I'm going to be eating vegetables and fruits to make up for that. Your body's not going to crave that. Your body's being restricted from specific foods, and that's highly going to be whether or not your body's restricted vegetables and fruits, and you might start to crave vegetables and fruits. But 9 times out of 10, your body's been restricted of high sugar, high fat content, and that is going to be the food that it's going to seek out and going to be more hyper aware of, and food that it's going to want more quantities of. And that's normal. That is completely normal, and that is okay. You can respond to that. You can eat that, and you can eat that in the quantity you want. Don't eat it in the quantity you think you should have. Eat it in the quantity you want. That was something I struggled with. I could allow myself to eat the foods that I wanted, but I struggled with allowing myself the quantity of the foods I wanted. And restriction is still restriction. Whether or not you've ate 5,000 calories a day, if you say no to something when you want something, that is still restriction. No matter if you've ate everything on your meal plan, if you've said no to something, restriction is restriction. So the next thing I'm going to answer is, lots of people ask me, like, well, how do I do it? How do I let it happen? Like, how do I not freak out? How do I not how do I cope with the guilt afterwards? Like, am I developing binge eating disorder? You know what I mean? So the first thing I want to mention with that is the binge eating disorder thing. So loads of people are like, oh, but I'm going to develop binge eating disorder. You will not develop binge eating disorder, okay? You will not. This is something that happens in response to restriction. You cut the restriction, you cut the binge eating. That's simple, that's fact. But if you are going to fuel the binges by restricting, then your body's just wanting to binge and binge and binge and binge and binge. So cut the restriction, cut out any anorexia bullshit or anything that to do with restriction, whether or not that's literally like, so for example, I will give you an example of a time where I restricted by mistake and it led to a binge. So for example, I ate a slice of cake, right? And I knew for a fact I wanted another slice of cake, but I was like, oh, I'll just wait, I'll just wait until nighttime, because there's a really common thing that anorexics do where they save up their calories for the nighttime, and then all of a sudden they get super hungry, then they do this entire feasting throughout the night. And it's a really common process of like restriction, binge, restrict, binge, restrict. It's an entire cycle. But anyways, back to the story that I'm going to tell you. is that I really wanted another slice of cake, but I was like, oh, I'll just wait until the night time, you know, because then I'll probably want another slice of cake if I eat one slice now, so I'll just have thingy. I didn't eat that slice of cake, and then it got to the night time, and then I was kind of like, oh, fuck it, I'll just eat the entire cake, because I was so hungry. I just wanted the entire cake. Whereas if I ate that slice of cake, then I'll probably another one in the afternoon, then I wouldn't have felt the necessary need to eat the entire cake. Okay. And even if I did find the necessary need later on in the day to eat the entire cake, then it would kind of be like, okay, I'd let myself do that too. But 9 times out of 10, I'd probably be satisfied off that other slice, and I should have just did that other slice rather than restricting it. Then my brain was like, oh, I'm not gonna get cake again, I need to quickly eat it, and then ate it all in one go. And then that's the kind of thing I'm telling you, okay? You can stop these kind of binges if you stop the restriction. Obviously, when you first start recovery and you first start responding to your hunger, these recovery things will happen even if you're not restricting, because they're kind of like a thing, a response to the restriction. So all that restriction that you ever did will start to like build up this entire urge to want to have this recovery feast, and then you just need to let it out and just let them happen and just stay calm. And I know it's easy me just sitting here but just stay calm, but you literally just need to stay calm. Don't do any behaviors like purging by doing laxatives, like purging by making yourself sick, or exercise, because either way that's still restricting your body from food and still purging the food, therefore you want more food, and it'll just be this once again another cycle. So like I cannot like preach to you enough about how that you need to stop the restriction in order for these binge feasts to stop. So I haven't really had a proper like huge binge feast in like a really long time now, actually, because of the fact that I cut the restriction out. Obviously I still have the odd one, like for example when I worked that one time, I mentioned this in one of my videos, when I worked that one time and I wasn't able to respond fully to my extreme hunger, that was still a form of like restriction, and therefore I did have like a big recovery feast the next day, and that was normal. I expected that to happen. Obviously I didn't feel great about it, but I expected it to happen. I also want to mention that it is like, I read this thing not long ago that it actually can be pretty much impossible for a person with restrictive eating disorder to develop a binge eating disorder, because obviously anorexia is all to do with the neural pathways and the way you rewired your brain to, you know, think about weight gain is bad and stuff like that, and you know, weight loss is good, blah 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 blah. Basically you wired your brain so much that at the core of your brain is restriction, and at the core of your brain is like this urge to restrict, and you're so hyper aware and so aware of the food that it's not binging, okay? It's not binge eating disorder. Binging is like when you're completely out of it, you're unaware of what's happening, and you want to stop yourself and you don't want this food anymore, and like you're like, you just want to keep eating and you don't want the food though. That's the difference. When you're in anorexia recovery, you want the food, you're thinking about the food, you need the food, your body is literally crying out for the food. There's a huge difference between binge eating, having a binge eating disorder, in recovery feasting / binging, and anorexia recovery. Another thing I want to answer is that professionals don't recommend you to do this, and this is once again where I disagree with professionals. So the professionals do this for a reason though. So say a dietitian or whatever, they tell you don't listen to that mental hunger, don't listen to that binge, or like you shouldn't do it, you know what I mean? They'll say stuff like this, and the main reason they're doing that is in a form of way to protect you, but also in a way to seal you from the reality of recovery, which is wrong, and definitely like I disagree with it on so many levels. But basically they tell you not to listen to the binge because they fear that you won't be able to handle it. Like I mentioned before, restriction is at the core of your brain, and is at the core, like all your pathways lead to kind of restriction, and that's where you have to rewire your brain, and that's all what recovery is about. But you know, it's kind of awful to say this, but like the doctors don't think you're strong enough. The doctors don't think you're mentally strong enough to handle it, and you need to prove them wrong, just like I proved them wrong, just like Tabitha proved them wrong, just like everyone else who has recovered has proved them wrong. You need to prove them that you are strong enough to handle it. They think that once you have a binge you will restrict and go back downhill and probably relapse and stuff like that. You need to show them that you can cope with having a binge, and you need to show yourself actually that you can cope with having a binge without restricting. So whether or not you've ate 5,000 calories, 10,000 calories, 11,000 calories, however many calories, if you've just like had a recovery binge, you need to make sure that you do not restrict afterwards, and you need to prove to your mental professional, however, that you're stronger than that, and that you won't relapse of having these binges. And that, just remember though, like when you are having these, this won't last forever, this won't last forever, and that this will go away. Your mental hunger, like extreme hunger, will go away over time. You just need to give it what it wants in that moment and don't restrict. Restriction will be your enemy. It's unfair for professionals to do this to us. For starters, they don't teach us about extreme hunger, and when people go through extreme hunger, they literally don't know what's happening, and they freak out and they think they're developing a binge eating disorder. They don't talk about things like recovery feasts or binge eating or anything like that either. It's like they kind of want you to stay in a recovering state rather than a recovered state for life, and that's not right. You want to be recovered, and if you want to be recovered in that you want to be completely free from your disorder and not have this obsession about food thoughts and stuff like that, then you must honor these kind of recovery binges, and you must honor all of your hunger, no matter how much that is. I went through days where I've ate a Domino's pizza, then went ahead and ate Chinese takeaway leftovers, then went ahead and ate Indian leftovers, and I mean like these were full meals. So I ate like an entire Domino's pizza, then I went ahead and ate egg fried rice and chips and prawn crackers and curry sauce, and I went ahead and I ate Indian peanut rice and the naan bread and curry sauce from the Indians and another bag of chips. Like, I did this all in one sitting, and yes, I felt so physically full, like I was gonna explode, but literally, like, I just rolled over, went to bed, and woke up and I was all right. Yes, I was a tad bit bloated, but that is no reason to restrict either. You will be bloated, and it's normal for you to be bloated, and you must not restrict. And another thing, you might also get constipated and stuff, but in order for your digestive system to start working again, you must also once again eat more food and regulate your digestive system. Regulate that food's going to be a common thing that goes in and is able to too much information come out normally and stuff. But like, it's just literally a normal process and a normal thing, and recovery binge and feasting is normal, and the only way to avoid it is to not restrict. But like I mentioned, that if you're like, but I've ate so much food and I'm still getting these restriction urges and I'm still binging and stuff like that, it probably means you need more food. And another thing before I end this video is talking about the night eating cycle. So a really common thing and something that I was personally stuck with is a night eating cycle. It's where a person really struggles to eat during the day and restricts during the day, and then gets to the nighttime and they're so hungry that their body freaks out when you allow it food, that it just wants all the food all at once. This is a really common thing that happens, and you need to make sure that you are eating. Like, I forced myself, I had to physically force myself, even though I felt sick during the day, I had to force myself to eat food during the day, and then I didn't find this ravenous urge to eat during night. But also normal just in general, that my night hunger is a lot more than during my day hunger. But then I was also thinking about pre-ED, Emma, and I was also kind of like that pre-ED. Like, I didn't really snack as much during the day, and I snacked a lot more during like nighttime, like when I came from school and stuff like that. Then I would start to snack, and that's kind of the same kind of thing that's been happening recently. And everyone's hunger is different, and everyone's hunger to satisfy them will be completely different. And some people might be hungry in the morning, some people might be hungry at nighttime. You cannot compare. And the best thing to do is to turn off your social medias. Don't look at the social medias. If you are going to look at social medias, make sure you only follow accounts like me who post good amount of like food portions and good amount of food to like comfort you. Or like, even then, so like if my account doesn't help you, or if like you've ate so much food in that day and my account still doesn't help you, then just stay off social media. Don't look on it. Don't compare. You don't need to compare your hunger. You've ate a completely different amount to what anyone would eat, you know what I mean? Like, you just cannot compare, okay? And if you've still had a recovery feast and you're still hungry, then it means that you need to continue that, and you need to continue to eat. So I hope this has explained a little bit about recovery feasting, and I want to remind you, this isn't my last video on recovery feasting. There is so much more to come about recovery feasting, but I just wanted to come on here and tell you it's completely normal, and please do not restrict. Please don't give in to your ED. And honestly, after you've had a recovery feast or anything, just sit with the thoughts. And I know it's awful, just sit with the thoughts, distract yourself, play Sims, do weird things like design your future house, design clothing, I don't know, do something to take your mind off it, and just remember that this isn't gonna last forever. Whether or not you're a healthy weight or underweight, your body needs this and is doing this for a reason. And trust the process, trust your body, trust your brain. Everything happens for a reason. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and goodbye.